badly. Anybody else has to pee? Just me? Okay. Yeah. You can leave the room if you want to. I won't say anything. Well, when FinchFactor asked me to prepare for this talk, it took me a lot of time. Much more time than I would normally take to prepare for a presentation. And because I thought it was such an easy topic, and it was going to take me like 2 or 3 hours maybe, but it took me about 10. So, and it's not because I made a lot of slides. So if you see my slideshow, you'll probably be like, did this take her 10 hours, you know, to prepare 6 slides, seriously? But I realized that normally I present about work, or something work-related, and it's something that I know by heart. And this is something that's from the heart, which is much harder and very different. So, here we go. You aren't going out looking like that is something that my mom would never say. Because she grew up in the 60s and she made her own clothes. And she always dressed her age without looking dull or as a boring mom. And she always made me pick my own clothes as well. And I refused to wear dresses, so I never wear dresses. And she always covered up, but she always decided to show one of her assets off, to either show off her hair, or her lips, or her legs, or her eyes. And although she was tall, just like me, she always wore heels, or she wasn't afraid to wear heels. And that's something I also learned from her. And also I learned that men love this about her, because when she entered the room, she was present, she made a statement, but also everybody took her serious. And that happens if you're a woman and you're 180 or up, you know. You make a presence and everybody takes you serious. They're sometimes afraid of you as well. I never find this very bad either. But, and my mom was the president of the ABN AMRO Computer Club, which she was the only woman who was in the board. And I used to watch her at events when she was giving presentations, and all the men in the room were watching her, and I was watching them respond to her and looking at her. And that was one of my favorite things to do when I was a kid growing up. And I was really proud about the way she succeeded to be one of the boys, but not lose her femininity in that. And that's something that I always try to do as well. And it's very special to survive as a woman in a male-dominated world like a bank. And the top of the creative and marketing industry is not that different. It's also dominated primarily by men, which is why events like these and nights like these are organized. And it's a pity to see little men in the audience, but at least there are men, and it's good that we're talking about these kinds of topics. And I've never seen myself really as a feminist, and I've never seen my mom as a feminist either. If someone in our family was a feminist, then it was my dad. He was a stay-at-home dad, or at least he was an artist, so his job allowed him to be at home a lot. And when I was a kid growing up, I always came home for lunch, and I never wanted that because all my friends were staying in school, and so I could stay in school for 1 time a week, just to be with my friends. And the other times I came home and my dad was there and he made us lunch. He always votes for the first woman on the list when there are elections. And that's what he does, you know. It's not even I vote for men most of the time. But yeah, he's a feminist, but and he's my biggest supporter as well. But because this talk is about moms, I won't go into too much stories about my dad. So I'll get to my mom. This is my mom. Her name is Martina, or was Martina, because she passed away 8 years ago on the 5th of December 2005 from the results of a brain tumor. And my mom and I were like peas in a pod, and she's my biggest example, and I am her spitting image. And she has taught me some lessons, but not really in a way that I can still remember her quoting things saying to me, you know. It's been 8 years, and I think the biggest part of me growing up happened after that. So that's why I probably don't remember that much quotations of her, but I do know some. And my mom always advised me not to choose the hard way, because she did. authority and her wasn't a good combo. Her dad passed away when she was way too young, and her mom was an artist too, so there were very few rules, but one of the rules in the household was chaos. And friends were always stopping by, and she told us many stories about her pet crow that she kept in her room. And there was a lot of freedom to follow your passion and develop your own interest, but there was very little boundaries and a total lack of guidance, which was unfortunately exactly what she needed. She needed someone to tell her to stay in school and to stimulate her to make the most of her abilities. And her older brothers and sisters were stimulated, but it felt like her parents thought that their work was done after they two of them kicked their kids to university. My mom, the pressure of my mom doing that wasn't very high, so she went to domestic science school because that's what girls her age did if you didn't know what to do after school. And she taught herself how to sew, and she worked at a clothing store. And after that, she worked as an intermediary at Randstad. And when they wanted to send me to intermediate level of general secondary education, which is MAVO in Dutch, my mom and my dad wouldn't have it. They said her brother's going to gymnasium, her results in school are really good, so she's going to gymnasium as well. And in that time you could still make that pick as parents. Nowadays parents cannot make that decision for their kids anymore. The school makes the decision. But they just wanted to send me to a lower level because they thought I was trouble. I was easily distracted, I was very hard to be motivated to learn stuff I didn't find very interesting. I was tested for ADD, which never turned out to be something that I was struggling with. I just had a lack of motivation to do stuff I didn't want to do. And my mom and dad never worried that everything worked itself out in a later moment in life. And they always just kept the faith that I would make it and I would make my own decisions. So they made sure that all preconditions were taken care of so that I could focus on my own development and my own personal life. So I breezed through high school and university without ever running into any real big issues. So the only problem that I had to worry about were mundane stuff, like if a particular boy liked me, or if what I would be like if I grew up, or if I was ever going to develop tits and an ass, or something like that, you know, which never happened, obviously. But I breezed through high school and university, and I landed my first job as a community manager. And I worked as a community manager for KLM, amongst others. And I was one of the first community managers in the Netherlands at that time. And one of the biggest breaks in my career was the fact that this job was made for me. Due to my marketing, communications, and psychology background, it fitted like a glove. And because of the novelty of the profession of community management, change has been the only constant in my life for the last 7 years of my career. And when I was asked to apply for the job at DDB and Tribal, which I'm doing right now, Ivo Roefs, the managing partner, asked me about my resume, and he said, "It looks very irregular, and can you explain to me why it looks so irregular?" And before he asked me that question, I never thought about that. And I didn't have an answer for him right away, so I went home and I thought about why I didn't have an answer, and I decided to email him my answer 2 days later when I thought about the question. And the reason why my resume looks so irregular is because I didn't plan for any of this to happen in a certain sequence. It just happens, and I just make decisions based on how I feel at the moment. And I don't do 5-year plans, I don't do 10-year plans, I don't even do 1-year plans, just like you. And the reason for this is that I probably more than others realize that life waits for no one. So it probably looks to others that I'm always in a hurry, but I'm not in a hurry. I just don't see any point in waiting, which to me is different. I don't see the point in staying in an unhappy situation. If I'm unhappy or don't feel challenged, it's time for me to move on. And for this means that in the last couple of years I haven't seen my comfort zone at all. And I'm totally fine with that. I'm okay with living outside my comfort zone, because comfortable or content is not a word that I would ever use to describe any part of my life. I'm comfortable, if I'm comfortable, it means that I'm not pushing myself enough. So when I started university in Amsterdam, there was no real reason for me to move out, because I grew up in Amsterdam, which is just around the corner. And I wanted the experience to move out and to live on myself, so my parents agreed that I could move out if I finished my propedeutics in 1 year, which I did, so I moved out in the summer of 2002. And my mom and I called each other every day, just to have a small chat about really mundane stuff, how my day was, what her day was like, what she and my dad were up to. And she was really involved in my life and knew exactly what was going on. And she's always been like that, and not only with me. She was always up to date in every important aspect of every important person in her life. And she was always there. Even if she couldn't physically attend an event, she was there in spirit. And she was the spider in the web at work and the backbone of her family. And while doing this, she also followed her own passions. She had several dear friends that she cherished and that she had for many, many years, but always room for new people, people who touched her life or whose life she touched. And she taught me never to underestimate the power of one human being. And she taught me the importance of investing in a social life and in your own personal life and personal development. She loved sports. She played competitive volleyball for years, practiced horseback riding, she did fitness together with me, and in the last years of her life she also played golf. And she loved spending time with my dad as well. So my mom thought it would be an awesome idea if they would play sports together. So they went and they practiced tennis together, they played golf together. Unfortunately, for my mom, my dad didn't like either. So he hated to go to tennis, he hated to go to golf. And the problem was that he had more talent for sports than my mom. So he was better at it, although he hated to go, which of course pissed her off even more. But she had no problem in continuing by herself. She just went and she made new friends very easily. And she took it upon herself to organize a tournament or some social activity where organizational talents and social skills would be met. And just like my mom, I'm very much into sports, and I've always loved playing sports, and I needed to keep me sane and focused. And when I started university, I joined a rowing fraternity here in Amsterdam, and every single match my parents came to watch us and to cheer us on. And they rode their bikes to the troops of cheering and yelling frat boys and frat girls. And they rang their bicycle bells, so we knew exactly that my parents were looking and that they were cheering us on, because they were just crazy people ringing their bells all the time. And yeah, which was a lot of fun. And they were just there. And I really appreciate the fact that my friends got to know my mom still, or at least some of them. And every year when I celebrate my birthday, I make kind of a big deal out of it, which kind of happened at the same time when my mom passed away, that I found this really important. And it's not that because I think it's a big deal that I grew 1 year older, or because I really like presents, which of course I do. But it's because it's the only day a year where all my friends and different groups of friends are together in one room. And I love watching them get along and see new friendships between some groups of friends develop, and just to watch it all unfold before my eyes. And one of my friends, who unfortunately isn't here tonight, she phrased it perfectly when she said, every year on your birthday, we look around the room and we try to spot the newbies. And the room, the people who have come into your life during that year, and some people who have left. And every year the crowd is different, with a huge group of regulars, but also always some new additions, and it's always fun. So that's something that, yeah, I found really nice, that they would describe my birthday and my group of friends like that. And yeah, my friends are really special to me. When my mom got sick and admitted into the hospital, I was at a friend's house in Groningen, which for people not from Holland is on the other side of the country. And I already missed the last train. So one of my friends, Elise, who's sitting here right now, she drove all the way from Amsterdam to come pick me up in around midnight, and she drove me back to Amsterdam and dropped me off at my parents' place, so I could be with my dad and my brother when I heard she was sick. So when my mom was in the hospital, all my friends made a schedule to make sure that me and my dad and my brother were never alone sitting in a waiting room by ourselves being sad. So someone would always be there. And the evening she passed away, one of my other friends, Willemijn, who's sitting here, organized a get-together at her house and invited all my friends, and we all shared memories about my mom. And we laughed together and we cried together and we drank lots and lots of wine, I think. And it was just a great night. And on the day of my mom's funeral, they shielded me away from all the people who wanted to offer their condolences to me, just because they knew that I would have to come on stage and I would have to tell a story about my mom in front of 100 people, and I didn't want to cave in and cry and be a total woos on stage. And so they shielded me off and made sure that I didn't break before I gave my speech. And when people ask me, and they sometimes do that during job interviews, and I do a lot of those because I switch jobs almost every 2 years, they always ask me, what's your biggest achievement in life? And that's a question that pops up every once in a while. And I always say that I see my friendships and my friends as the biggest achievement in my life, which of course isn't an achievement of me, it's a group effort, but still it's very special to me. And I'm just very gifted to have them in my life and to take care of me. And I'm really happy that my mom always inspired me to invest time in meeting new people, but also in cherishing the old. And when one of my best friends got married in July, I heard a quote about friendship that describes it perfectly to me. A friend is someone who understands your past, believes in your future, and accepts you just the way you are. And to me, that's what friendship is. And acceptance is very much important in friendships, but it's also very important to our own self-image. And I think we sometimes underestimate how much acceptance means to that. And this night is about female leadership, and SheSays as an organization wants to see more women on top. And I was invited to here tonight to share the secret of my success, which I don't really have, in my opinion. I don't really have a secret to share with you, because also in my opinion, success is really relative. And I don't think that I'm more successful than my friend who has 3 children, a part-time job, and she's the backbone of her family, and she manages her household. So why is she less of a leader than me? Just because I manage a department at a large agency or advertising firm. If there's one thing that my mom taught me, it's that everybody makes their own choices and that everybody's accountable for their own actions. So it's accepting the fact that the choices you have made have consequences in your life, where we as women run into problems most, I think. And it's accepting that something's got to give. Accepting that you cannot be the big shot at work, be the mom who waits at home with the tea and cookies, be the thoughtful friend who organizes the baby shower, run a marathon twice a year, have a vibrant social life, and be the lady on the street and the freak in the bed. That's not possible. You can't do all. And I know we all want to, because we're queens of multitasking by nature, and we're all dying trying, but still we're struggling, or at least I see a lot of women around me struggling. And I think the internal and external pressure that we put upon ourselves and others is very extreme. And we want to see more women on top because diversity has proven to be beneficial to business. And still we see very little women on top. And I think there are 2 important parties that play a role in this. And the first is society, and the other one is women themselves. I think society can support women by doing things like lowering the cost of childcare, because what I hear from my friends who have kids is that one of both working parents' salary is almost in full reserved to pay for childcare, which is ridiculous in my opinion. And society can also support men by giving them more time to also bond with their children. And our neighbors in Sweden and Norway at least get the fact that it's totally ridiculous that a dad has 2 whole days to bond with his kid before he has to go back to work. And we as women also have to come to terms with ourselves, and we are one of the parties involved in changing how much women are on top or how female leadership is filled in. Evolution has changed us and our behavior, but it hasn't changed all of our primitive urges. And most of us as women want children, and most of us want to be an important aspect in our kids growing up and their lives. And therefore most women step down when they have kids, which ultimately impacts their careers. Because top-level positions are not part-time jobs, and I don't expect that they will ever be. Therefore, we as women have to accept the fact that we have to make our pick and accept the consequences of our actions and of our choices. And I think it's not our lack of ambition that prevents us from having top-level positions. I think it's the abundance of empathy, internal conflict and external challenges that we have to overcome. When you hear female leaders and some of my role models like Oprah Winfrey or Sylvia Toth or Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook speak, they all have the same thing to say. And that's that they accept their decisions and the consequences they have, and that they're willing to pay the price. And the latter is very important. We as a society have to accept that leadership comes in different shapes and forms, and we have to stop focusing about women in top positions or diversity in the workplace. In my opinion, it's very important that we do focus on this every once in a while, but we also have to focus on creating a good support system for women to be on top, and to also appreciate women who make the conscious decision not to be on top, and who are also leaders and role models in our daily lives, like my mom. And this changes the way we look at women and men. We have to support and accept each other's decisions, even if they differ from ours. And I think this is something that I'm struggling with on a daily basis, but at least I'm trying to be conscious about it. And we have to accept ourselves, and I've never felt like I had to work harder or prove myself more than any man in a workspace just because I'm a woman. In comparison to most women, I probably have an overdoses of testosterone, drive, ambition, enthusiasm, and energy. And I probably lack a little bit in the empathy department. And I don't have a primitive urge to procreate, and I'm very decisive, and I can easily overcome setback, which probably differs me a little bit from most women. And I'm a product of both my parents, but my mom has played a huge part in my life and the development of my career. And my mom was never invited to speak on a stage like this. Even if she would have still been alive, she wouldn't have been the person that you would invite to speak about female leadership. But I'm happy that you guys from SheSays and FinchFactor gave me the chance to do so, and to tell you her story and mine. And I'm sorry that I don't have a secret formula about the secret of my success, but hopefully I've given you some food for thought and a great reason to call your mom tonight or tomorrow. And thank her for just being her.